Happy Thursday. I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps, and this is Lunchtime Live, episode 87. For those of you who are new here, Lunchtime Live is basically my video newsletter for Stitches and Scraps, and then at the end of every segment, I do a little demo. So first I'll tell you everything that's new at Stitches and Scraps, what's coming up, what I'm working on, and then we'll get into a demo. Now for 2022, I have decided to do a stitch of the week, and I'm alternating between knit and crochet stitches. Today's stitch of the week is the crochet shell and V stitch, and this is putting together what we've learned in previous weeks with shell stitches and V stitches. Now we're combining them into one stitch pattern, and that's the demo that's coming up at the end of the video. Now, as I talk about things when we go through the video, if there's a pattern or a tutorial that I mention and you want to find the link to that, look in the description on this video and you'll see a link that goes to a blog post. And in that blog post, there's a list of everything I'm planning to talk about today and all the links to it. So if I mention something like the giveaway that's ending at the end of the month and you want to go enter, that's where you find that information. So let's jump right into it. First of all, there's a giveaway ending at the end of the month. We are now finished with bag number 2 in our bag along cal that we've been doing for the year. We're doing a different bag every 2 months. And the April bag, we're done. We've got all the pattern and tutorial information, all of that out. The only thing that's still active is the giveaway. So if you go to the materials and giveaway post for bag number 2, you'll see the giveaway entry form. And if I'm not mistaken, it ends on the 29th. I'm like 99% sure that was what it was. But go there, all the details are there. Make sure you get your entries in, whether you made the bag or not, because we have wonderful prizes from We Crochet. And on this one, we're giving away a basic tool pack. Which is kind of cool. Go take a look and you'll see all the stuff that's in it and all of that. And get those entries in so you get a chance before April 29th. Okay, so that is the reminder for that. As far as new patterns on the blog this week, I made a sweeper cover. So this is it's one of the style that slides on. So you slide one end of the sweeper in, then you stretch this end to the other side and you slide it in here. Now pretend my hand's a sweeper, and then you've got, your sweeper. It's got a textured bottom, and it's a really simple texture, easy to repeat. And then it's got just plain half double crochets on the top. So it's thin enough on the top that you can shove it into the little grooves if your sweeper has those little grooves on the top. So really quick and easy. I think this thing takes about half an hour to make at most, for me at least. And I just used some scrap cotton yarn that I have in my stash. And this is actually a blend of cotton and acrylic yarn. So really cool, fast, easy pattern to make. And it's made to be a little bit small so that when it stretches, it like fits tightly. So plus in the pattern, because I know not everybody has the same brand or style of sweeper, I included instructions for adjusting the width and adjusting the length. Just remember to make it a little tight because cotton tends to sag a bit. So you want it to be able to stretch and cover tightly and not be like drooping as you're sweeping. So that's the new pattern. Sorry, I seem to be losing my voice all of a sudden. Give me a second. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so that is the new pattern on the blog. The other reminder, and I think I've mentioned this before, but just another reminder, conference registration is open for the Crochet Guild of America conference. I am going to be there. I'm looking forward to everybody being there and seeing everybody again, first time in person. We do have a fashion show, so get your entries in for the fashion show. The class listings are up. There's some awesome classes. I'm trying to think what else that you need to sign up for ahead of time. Yeah, we've got Professional Development Day, Master's Day, all of that going on, just like our normal conference. We do not have a design competition this year. We couldn't find a volunteer in the New Orleans area where the conference is to receive and sort and label all of the items that come in, which is a huge job that somebody local has to do because they have to transport all of it. And we just couldn't find a volunteer for that this year. So no design competition, but everything else will be there. So that's what's new. As far as what I'm working on, a while back, do you guys remember when I told you I saw a picture of Dua Lipa in a swimsuit cover-up? And I swear 100% I'm positive that the filet crochet butterfly design on that cover-up is my filet crochet butterfly. They added a row to it, but whoever made that for her, I think they used my pattern, which is fine. My patterns say you can use them for things you made. But it got me thinking that, you know, there's things I didn't like about what she did with it. And I'm like, I could do that differently and I would like it better this way. Not better overall, but more to my preference. So I'm thinking I'll make a swimsuit cover up, a little bit different, but along those lines using that pattern. So I'm hoping to have that out in time for, you know, actual summer weather, because I don't know about you guys, but it snowed here last week. Or this week, really, it snowed already. But anyway, so that's something I'm working on. I still also have to update those other two washcloth patterns that I was telling you needed an update. And then next week's stitch of the week is going to be the knit dandelion stitch, which is a fun stitch. So that's what's coming up next week. And I'm going to jump right into the demo. I see a couple of you are on. Go ahead and say hi so I know you're here. Okay, so the demo for this week, let me switch over here. We are doing shells and V's. Now, obviously this is a combination of two stitches, right? When I taught you the V stitch, I showed you all different variations you could do with the V stitch. When I taught you the shell stitch, I showed you all different variations you could do with the shell stitch. Now we're putting the two of them together. There are infinite variations on this. You can stagger them, you can stack them, you can put other stitches in between them, you can make them taller or shorter or wider, or add more stitches to them, or put chain spaces in them. There's a million different things you can do. I am showing you this, which is one of the more common combinations you'll see. I'm showing you this shell and V stitch. So if you see other shell and V stitch combinations, there's so many different ways you can do it. So let's take a look at the structure a little bit. And actually I'm going to crochet this along as we follow along. The multiple is a multiple of 8 plus 5 for the way I'm doing it here. We'll talk more about that later. So 8 is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's this. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's this. And then here there's another 4 and 1 on the end here, so that's the plus 5. So 4 for the V, 4 for the shell. Actually, to get really technical here, it's 3 for the V and 5 for the shell, but we'll talk about that as we go. So 3 for the V, 5 for the shell gives you a multiple of 8. And then with what I did on the edges here, that adds 5. So I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how many stitches I need. Now I'm starting with a double crochet, so I'm going to chain another 2 so that these first 3 stitches count as that double crochet. So that's my first double crochet. And in the 4th chain from the hook, so 3 of them are the first double crochet, the 4th one, I'm going to put another 2, oh, what am I doing? I'm going to put another 2 double crochet in there. Okay, there we go. Now actually, you could do this 2 ways, right? Sorry, I know everything I say has like, oh, well, but really, no, but seriously, I'm actually going to change that. And I know this is the way I wrote it, but I'm going to change that because to me, when you look at 3 chains as being a double crochet, that bottom one is the bottom of the stitch and the 2 give it the height. So I'm actually going to put those 2 in the third chain. So I need 1 less chain. There we go. Not the typical way of doing it, but I think it gives it a tighter look at the end. So you can do, you know, the 2 or 3, whatever you want. So there is my 3 double crochet. Now this counts as half of a shell, okay? So the next thing, if we've just done half a shell, the next thing is a V. So a shell stitch, we have 5 stitches, right? 1 in the center, which goes into this stitch here, and then 2 on each side. So it's 5 stitches, which means we need it to cover 5 chains. So we go into the center chain with the stitch, and then we cover 2 chains on each side. Okay, so here I've done this half V, and it covers over 2 chains on this side. But now, or sorry, half shell. Now V stitches are 3 stitches, right? 1, 2, 3, and they cover 1 on each side. Okay, so if I skip 2 for the shell and then 1 for the V, I'm skipping a total of 3 stitches. And that's why I did these edges this way, because even on the edges, you're skipping 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3 chains, and now I'm going to do a V into this chain here. And then I skip 1 stitch for the other side of this V and 2 stitches for the shell, right? So I skip 3 stitches total, and then in the next stitch, I'm going to put my shell. And the shell again is 5 double crochet all in the same spot. Okay, so now at the end, oops, I didn't make enough chains. Let me back that up. Back it up, back it up, back it up, make an extra chain. Okay, I'm gonna make some few extra chains so that I know I have enough. All right, so I've got my half shell here. The perils of live video, right? Half shell there, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and put a V stitch here. 1, 2, okay. Skip 1, 2, 3, and put a shell stitch here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I'm going to skip 2 for this side of the shell, okay, and I'm going to skip 1 for a V, but I'm not going to put a full V in, right? So I'm skipping 3 still. I'm not going to put in a full V because I'm at the end and I want it to stand up. Well, a V is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. I'm just going to eliminate that chain. So here is 1 stitch that covers the 1 chain that I skipped, right? It leans in by 1 chain. And then here is a straight up and down stitch. All right. So now let's look at what I've done on the edges here. And I'm going to take out these extra chains. And this is a trick you can use if you're not sure of your chain count too, or if you're working a complicated pattern, is just add some extra chains, and then when you're done, take them out. So, okay, so let me show you why I did what I did with the edges here. Okay, you could do just a straight up and down stitch, right? You could say, okay, I skip 1 here and I just put a double crochet right there, and here I skip 2 and I put a double crochet right there. That is perfectly acceptable as well. And then your multiple becomes, let's see, you're taking off 2 here and you're taking off 1 here. So your multiple becomes 8 plus 1 instead of 8 plus 4. Or sorry, 8 plus 2 instead of 8 plus 5. So that's a completely acceptable option as well. The reason I did this is, frankly, it makes it easier to write it because you're always skipping 3 chains. You're not skipping 1 chain here and 2 chains here. You're just always skipping 3 chains. It's the same on both directions. And so it's very easy to go, you know, skip 3 chains, 1, skip 3 chains. Plus, I like the way the edge looks with this. It looks like it's part of the pattern. It's not a straight up and down separate edge. Like if I block off that this is the edge of the work, it kind of looks like the pattern just keeps going, right? So that's the edge I like, but you could do whatever you want with these edge stitches. So it's going to be a multiple of 8 plus whatever you decide to do with these edge stitches. So I have right now half of a shell, a V, a shell, and then half of a V, something like that. Okay, so now let's start the next row, and this is the repeat for all the rows now, okay? We're going to chain 3. We're starting with half of a shell. So in this space, we're going to do 2 more double crochets. So just like before, we're starting with half of a shell, okay? Now we're going to put a V stitch in the center of this shell. So just like before, we're skipping 3. 1, 2, 3. Put a V stitch in the center of this shell. And then we're skipping 3. 1, 2, 3 brings us to this chain space. Put a shell in the chain space. That's 5 double crochet all in the same space, right? Skip 1, 2, 3, and we're down to that last stitch. Go ahead and put your half V or your 2 double crochets into that last stitch. And then we just keep repeating that. So we always start with 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, right? We always skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then if we're in a shell, we do a V, and skip 1, 2, 3, and if we're in a V, we do a shell. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, and then end with 2 double crochets. And that is this version of shells and V's. Now, the other thing you can do with this version that you can change up is I did like on one side, not counting the edge stitches, right? On one side it starts with a V and it ends with a shell. And then here starts with a V, ends with a shell. I did that so that it's the same both ways, right? You could do, you know, shell 1, 2, 3, and then do that if you wanted to, but then it's going to be different in the different rows because here you're starting and ending with a shell and here you're starting and ending with a V. So then you're going to have a 2-row repeat. Yeah, I drew that badly, but yeah, I don't know what I did there. Anyway, but you're gonna have a shell on each end on this row and V's on each end on this row, and then you get a 2-row repeat. That's another option depending on how you want the symmetry to be. I don't think it makes a difference, and I think it's easier to have the repeat be 1 row so it's the same on every single row. And that is V's and shells. Are there any questions on that stitch pattern before I sign off? Everybody's very quiet today. I see a lot of you are online, but nobody has said anything. Anyway, thank you for joining me, even if it's a quiet day. And I will see you guys next week. Next week, we're going to do the knit, what did I say we were doing? The knit dandelion stitch. So that's the stitch for next week, and I will see you then. Bye. Oh, have a great weekend. I forgot to say have a great weekend. Okay, bye.